Welcome to the It's in Queens podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Simmons, and this is the only podcast that focuses on my borough of Queens. This podcast comes to you each week thanks to the Queens Tourism Council and the Queens Economic Development Corporation, or QEDC. Together, they present our borough as a destination with something for everyone, whether you live here, work here, or you are just visiting. Well, here we are. It's fall in Queens. You can tell that by the way the temperature has dropped. And what a fantastic time of year this is. The crispness in the air, the changing leaves, the excitement of the holiday season is just beginning. There really is no place like Queens this time of year. And if you're like me, you know that Halloween this week marks the official start of the holiday season. Personally, I love this time of year. There's something about the way Queens transforms in the fall that feels just magical, whether it's strolling through one of our beautiful parks as the leaves change color, or getting ready for Halloween with all the decorations popping up around the neighborhood. It is a time that really brings people together. And if you're looking for some great things to do in Queens this season, well, you are in luck. We've got fantastic options from spooky haunted houses to fall festivals, even local farmers markets that are in full swing. Head over to the Queens County Farm for their pumpkin patch and corn maze, or take a walk through Flushing Meadows Corona Park and enjoy the beautiful foliage. And of course, there are plenty of Halloween events for the kids. The arts and culture scene is also buzzing with performances and exhibitions happening all across the borough. Which brings me to today's guest. I'm thrilled to be joined this week by Harley Spiller, a Woodside resident and the Ken Dewey director at Franklin Furnace. For those of you who aren't familiar, Franklin Furnace has been a champion of avant-garde and experimental artists for decades. And Harley has been a key figure in that effort. We recently chatted about the important work that Franklin Furnace does to support artists, how they've evolved over the years, and of course, how the art scene in Queens fits into all of this. Here's that interview. Harley Spiller, Ken Dewey director at Franklin Furnace. Welcome to the It's in Queens podcast.
A pleasure to be here, Jeff Simmons. Thank you.
You have been in Woodside, Queens for some time now. So share a bit about your background, your career in the arts, and how Queens affects your career.
Queens is it. It's the end all and be all, baby. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I came to the city to pursue a career in museums, and I'm still at it 40 some years later. And I thought at that time Manhattan was it. But due to close friends in the city who said, you're wrong, and who pulled me to Jackson Heights and Elmhurst and Flushing and many other parts of the People's Borough, I fell in love with Queens. And of the 5 boroughs of New York City, it's the closest in heart to Buffalo, New York. People talk to each other. It's a little less snobbish, maybe. And I just feel comfortable in Queens, and I'm especially enamored of the internationalism.
And our winters are much better here than Buffalo.
Yeah, but summers in Buffalo, nobody ever talks about. They're gorgeous. They're temperate. But yeah, I know that the snow gets the lion's share.
So what initially sparked your interest in arts administration? What led you to take on even the role of as Ken Dewey director at Franklin Furnace?
I went to school. I was a good boy. I went to college, and I stood on the corner with my degree in my hand and said, oh, I hadn't planned what next. And I thought I would go to graduate school in art and English literature. I had an English degree, but I loved art equally well. There were no programs officially in the United States where you could do 50-50 art and English. So I thought about it and I said, okay, how about museums? Maybe I can learn how to work in a museum. There were 2 museum studies programs in 1981 in the United States. I got into the University of Denver, and my dad said, ask them where their graduates are placed today. And they were a new program, and the 20 or so graduates were all in entry-level positions. I said, forget debt, forget 2 years, Colorado, what? And wrote 120 letters to museums across the United States looking for work. I thought I would just cold call and see what happens. Every art museum in the country got my letter. Every museum in Hawaii got my letter. Nobody in Alaska or New York City, because who could live there? Who could make it there? But through networks, I ended up at the Jewish Museum in New York, loved it, but it was a little staid or tame for my true spirit. And then I heard about this place, Franklin Furnace, quite opposite of the staid. And I wrote a letter and I got an interview and I jumped ship. And I've been with Franklin Furnace since late 1986. And I love the funky, wild, weird, impossible end of the art world even more than the established gorgeousness that we see in the big museums.
So, Franklin Furnace. Many people might not be familiar with Franklin Furnace. It's known for supporting experimental time-based art. Can you explain how the organization's mission aligns with your personal vision for art and its place in society? Would love for people to know more about the organization.
Franklin Furnace Archive Inc. will be 50 years old in 2026. No one on our team can believe that we have lasted this long. It was started in 1976 by the artist Martha Wilson to catch the kind of art that mainstream institutions weren't seeing. And I'm the weird kid in the back of the classroom with a silver front tooth and a patch on one eye and big fat Coke bottle glasses. And here's this place that likes that kid and wants to know what's in that fellow human being's brain and in their aesthetic fingertips. And so Franklin Furnace works with others and outsiders and people that are vastly different, that have ideas that we might hate. I can personally completely detest an artist and their output, but I stand for their free speech. And the unique thing about Franklin Furnace is we don't have a curator who picks what we show. Each year we convene a panel of different artists and they tell us what's the next best thing. And we work with that regardless of our personal beliefs. And that is something I can stand on from here till kingdom come.
So, obviously, I said that you are the Ken Dewey director. I'd love for our listeners to know who Ken Dewey was and also what your role as the Ken Dewey director involves, how you help shape the future of Franklin Furnace.
Thank you, Jeff, for all these fun questions. Opportunity to reach the people of Queens and the whole city. Um, I never met Ken Dewey. He was an important artist who ventured into performance art and, as you said, time-based art forms, not oil on canvas, not ballet on stage, but things that are harder to peg. And his sister, Ariane Dewey, was on the board of directors of Franklin Furnace when I got there, and she was nice. She wasn't officious or anything. And I was just a young staffer. I got invited to her party on board a ship in the South Street Seaport. I was so excited to be involved with at the board level. That didn't happen much at the more established Jewish museum, but this Franklin Furnace is much smaller. And then I read the invitation and it said colorful dress, and I fell in love. And for my birthday parties and so forth going forward, I often use colorful dress. I steal it right from Marianne. She was terrific. The family is deep in the arts and we're friendly with Yoko and John. And the name Dewey should be known to every one of your listeners who paid attention in history class. It's Admiral Dewey's heirs, and I get to carry that name and it's exciting and powerful, and I'm extremely grateful to the entire Dewey family for what they do for Franklin Furnace and for the up and coming artists of the world.
So, as you noted, Franklin Furnace offers grants funding to emerging artists. Talk a little more about how the grants work, what kind of impact they have on the artists, but also on the broader community.
Franklin Furnace gives out several major grants a year. Major to us. We're not the MacArthur $800,000 Genius Award at this point. However, listeners out there, we're a charitable organization. No, we give out, the main grant is the Franklin Furnace Fund for Performance Art. It's been supported since 1985 by Jerome Foundation and also by the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and several other funders have joined us from time to time. Maybe 300 or so artists from around the world will apply. Many will not understand that performance art, which uses the body as your medium, is different than performing arts like theater or orchestra. But the panelists, the artist panelists, go through and they pick usually a dozen artists, and they'll get grants between $5,000 and $7,000 each. And then they're free to do their work, except they must send us the documentation. That's our archives. And we save the record of this ephemeral work, and we catalog it, and we make it accessible on the World Wide Web. We also give out the Jackie Apple Award. This is a new award for an advanced career artist. Very hard for someone towards the end of their career to find money when people want the next best thing, the newest, youngest, greatest craze. So Jackie Apple was an early staff member of Franklin Furnace who passed away, and her sister Margie Banks is making this possible for us to work with more advanced career artists. We also give out the Zeno Prize. This is a new grant, 2 years old. It goes to a performance artist working in one of the United States where gender affirmative care is banned or outlawed. So we're trying to help artists who are working with issues of gender have a platform. And the other grant goes to an artist book, to fund the creation of an artist book on the topic of banned or burned books. And this year, Mel Watkin won the Zeno Prize for Artist Books. She was in third grade. Mel's, I don't know, my age, over 50. And when she was in third or fourth grade, she took some notebook paper and made a little booklet about her future, what her mom did, what she was going to do, the career options for a 9-year-old from her view. Well, she got yelled at by her teacher, hauled into the principal's office. The mother was called in. The principal of the school tore up the book and said, these are not reasonable careers for a youngster to consider. And she was mortified as a 9-year-old can be. The mom was upset. She proposed 50 some years later to recreate this book from memory. And she won the grant. She was selected. And so this book that was torn up and thrown out by her grade school principal will be editioned and available to the public. And that's one lovely story of what can happen with Franklin Furnace.
So obviously, this is the It's in Queens podcast. I'd love to know about, any Queens-based artists or projects that have received support from Franklin Furnace, if you want to highlight one or two.
You're asking me to pick favorites? Quiz. Best name of an artist from Queens? Bingo Gazingo. He's long gone now, but Bingo Gazingo did some pretty sexy work with us. It's really hard to say. Hector Canonge is a Queens-based artist. He's down in his hometown of Buenos Aires doing a performance art festival. Kristen Clifford is a fabulous artist who works with women's rights and women's issues. Jody Lin Ki Chow is all city. Kiwi K. John Thomas has an incredible installation at PS 122 on First Avenue and 9th Street in that other borough. And the list goes on and on. But let me slide in one more name, Mickey Watanabe Spiller, who's doing Frankenstein staging and costumes for Queen's Productions right this minute. My wife.
And by the way, you mentioned that other borough. From what I understand, you're looking for new headquarters. I don't know if you want to talk a little about that, because could these headquarters be in Queens?
Yes, Franklin Furnace has been the organization in residence with Pratt Institute since 2014, but they have record student enrollment, over 5,000 students now, so they need their space back. And we've got a year to find roughly 2,000 square feet with some good conditions for our archives. We can't have it being dripped on or in the basement. And we would love to be in Queens, USA, the world's borough. So if anybody knows anything about a space that would welcome quiet, hardworking staff that supports super funky art, please be in touch.
And before I let you go, I just thought I'd find out if there's any other exciting upcoming projects or initiatives you'd like to talk about. And please make sure our listeners know where they can go if they want to learn more about Franklin Furnace.
Sure. On December 10th at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, we will introduce live in person the dozen artists who got grants from us in the evening. And if you'd like to come to that free event, there's even some snacks for a slim cat like you, Jeff. And we'd love to have you there. And the way to come to that event and to find out about Franklin Furnace, everything about us, send an email to Harley, Harley, at franklinfurnace.org. That's Franklin like Benjamin and furnace like in your basement. And visit our website, franklinfurnace.org, 24/7, 365 for other events, and get ready for our world-shaking 50th in 2026.
Harley Spiller, I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me on the It's in Queens podcast.
Thank you. It's in Queens. It's the real deal, baby. Thanks, Jeff.
What an insightful conversation with Harley. Franklin Furnace is truly a gem when it comes to supporting artists, providing them with a platform to showcase their groundbreaking work. From performance art to time-based visual media, Franklin Furnace has been at the forefront of pushing the boundaries of creativity for more than 40 years. And their commitment to nurturing artists who challenge the status quo is simply inspiring. Their support has helped launch the careers of a number of influential figures in the art world. Now, again, if you're interested in learning more about them, well, here's where you need to go. Head right over to franklinfurnace.org. And whether you're an artist looking for a platform or an arts enthusiast eager to discover something new, Franklin Furnace is a fantastic resource for innovative, thought-provoking work. If you're looking for something else to do this month or any month, we always have you covered here at the It's in Queens podcast. That is where Rob Mackay comes in. He's with the QEDC and the Queens Tourism Council, and each and every week he brings us details on some of the more exciting events that are happening in Queens. Here's this week's report.
Hi, Jeff. I hope you've already bought your Halloween candy because local stores are starting to run awfully low on supplies. I just found that out the hard way. And of course, as you probably know, Queens has some of the best trick-or-treating neighborhoods in the world, including your own Jackson Heights and my own Sunnyside Gardens. But Forest Hills Gardens and Bayside and Whitestone also always get on lists at such places as Time Out magazine. But anyway, I'd actually like to dedicate most of this segment to the Queens Economic Development Corporation's fourth annual Dia de los Muertos ceremony in Corona Plaza on Friday, November 1st. It'll run from 6 to 11. It's free. It's all sort of in the vicinity of National Street and 40th Avenue, if you know where that is. A group called Colibri Cultura y Artesanías is going to build a huge decorated altar with such offerings as fruit and bread and marigold flowers, as it always does. And the lineup of entertainment is pretty incredible. There's going to be some Aztec dance. There's actually going to be a couple of different styles of Mexican dance from a couple regions of the country. And then there will be a large mariachi concert at the end. It's all very fun. We've done it before, and it's always a blast. And then if you have time, out in Kew Gardens, Maple Grove Cemetery will host another ceremony on November 3rd, Sunday, from 1 to 2. This also is kind of special because a Queens artist whose name is Jack Chi Esquivel, he's of both Mexican and Chinese heritage. He's designed the altar, the ofrenda, and it's going to be pretty spectacular. So, clay, foam, plaster, all kinds of stuff, playing with light and color. And the greater afternoon there includes mariachi, an expert on mourning, a memorial service, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of fun stuff to do. I hope to see you at all of them. And maybe you can order some candy online. I don't know. All right.
Thank you, Rob. That is just a few of the things that are happening in Queens. If you would like to learn more, here's where you need to go. Head right over to the It's in Queens website, and that website address is itsinqueens.com. And by the way, if you're interested in learning more business-related news, well then head right over to the QEDC's website at queensny.org. And when you visit either website, make sure to sign up for their newsletter so you get notified right in your inbox about opportunities on the horizon. And when you visit any place in Queens this season, make sure to snap some photos and share them with us. And make sure to use the hashtag #It'sInQueens. Whether you post on Instagram or Twitter, we'll find your photo based on that hashtag #It'sInQueens. And your photo could become our photo of the week. I'm your host, Jeff Simmons, and that's it for this week's It's in Queens podcast.